Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 7 of the 2025 fantasy football season, where we're going to be talking about all things fantasy football. Of course, there's a baseball game going on. My Dodgers are playing, and I want to watch that game, but we have priorities here. Priority number one, making sure we hit the waiver wire and we pick up the players that are going to help us not only this week, but hopefully, for the remainder of the season. Many of us know that there are 2 teams on bye this week, but there are also 6 teams on bye in Week 8. The bipocalypse is almost upon us. So as long as we can continue to prepare ourselves for that, put ourselves in a position to succeed within the upcoming matchups, that's all that we can ask for. I hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Tuesday. Again, many of the players that we mentioned on yesterday's episode of Waiver Wire Pickups stand as such that we're going in that direction in terms of those potential pickups. Earlier today, I did drop my top 36 running back rankings video for Week 7. Obviously, it's a Tuesday video, but by the time we get to Sunday, there will be a couple adjustments over the course of the week based on injuries, based on potential news that we hear as we proceed. Outside of that, I hope you guys are doing well. Again, I'm going to be answering questions, so whether you do want to ask a question in the live chat or claim priority via super chat, make sure you include your scoring format. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be to answer said questions. Okay, hope you guys are doing well. Let's get into it, shall we? Alrighty, let's see here. First couple questions of the day via super chat come in from Luke C. I'm going to go ahead and pop that up on screen just so that we are aware as to where we're at in terms of these overall questions. Luke sends in a question, says PPR 3 wide receiver double flex format. I've got Bo Nix at quarterback. I've got Diggs, Cortland Sutton, Ladd McConkey, J-Mo Coker at wide receiver. I've been offered Herbert for Coker. Except, yeah, I'll take that deal. That's not a problem for me. I'm very happy with that overall position, especially considering your alternatives in terms of waiver wire. JJ McCarthy is not something that as of right now I'm willing to go pick up. I'm more in line to potentially prefer Sam Darnold if I was going to make a potential pivot. But in this circumstance, I think between the available options here, Herbert is the best quarterback for rest of season purposes when you compare him to Sam Darnold, Bo Nix. So being able to give up Coker in order to accomplish this, as of right now, I think it's well worth the potential trade. So yeah, I would make that deal, especially considering Nix is kind of experiencing a bit of a sophomore slump campaign as of thus far this season. Hopefully he'll improve, and if he does, again, that only makes it that much more of a better position for you so that you can kind of play whoever you want within an upcoming matchup, just kind of rolling him out as such. Thank you. Eric Sanchez sends in a question. Eric says, should I drop Waller for Fannin? As of right now, I wouldn't. I mean, I think they're both incredibly valuable. I just feel like the touchdown upside that Waller provides on a consistent basis for fantasy purposes is incredibly valuable. Now, Fannin's value is only going to be as high as it is in regards to the potential of what David Njoku's knee injury and how long that is going to potentially hold him out, if at any time. Of course, this most recent week, Fannin did see an uptick of overall opportunity, primarily because the Cleveland Browns threw the ball 52 times. I mean, again, if you're going to get 10 targets after the 52 total attempts, it makes sense. But in this certain circumstance, if David Njoku is back, and is going to be back as early as next week, if not this week, I would rather have Waller for the rest of season based on what he has accomplished already thus far this season. I know the couple weeks hasn't led to much overall opportunity share in terms of receptions, but as long as those touchdowns are there, everything else will start to fill in as we proceed. Thank you. Fantasy Forecast sends in a question, says, I need help. Bad trade sunk my team. We currently have Dak, White, Javonte, Amon-Ra, Sutton, Judkins, and Ferguson. I mean, I think you've got a pretty good team as it currently stands. Bench consisting of Bucky Irving, Trey Benson, Diggs, A.J. Brown, Bill, moves to make. I mean, look, as of right now, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Cortland Sutton are both 2 top 12 wide receivers. Within the upcoming weeks here, again, you still have Javonte Williams and Judkins who have incredible matchups ahead. Rashad White, as long as Bucky Irving is out, is incredibly valuable. But once Bucky does return, you're in a fantastic position. Like, when I look at all of these options, like Dak's a top 12 quarterback, maybe even top 8, arguably. Amon-Ra, Sutton are top 12 wide receivers. Javonte's a top 12 running back. Bucky, once he returns, is top 12. But until then, that's Rashad White. Judkins is kind of a flexible option, and he's going to have good weeks and he's going to have bad weeks, but luckily a lot of the matchups he has ahead are quite favorable towards him, and then you have the best tight end in fantasy. So when I look at the team as a whole, I don't look at it and think, oh wow, we're in desperate need of help. I look at it and I think, wow, you got a really good team here. So I mean, sure, maybe your record does not live up to the potential of what you currently have. I think that's probably just because of matchups. Like, yes, there are some bad weeks here and there, like Sutton and Judkins didn't perform to their highest potential, but neither did Javonte. But I'm not willing to just take one bad week here based on the fact that all three of those guys had been balling out on a very consistent basis to where I'm like throwing them out. Sure, like the opportunity of trading for a Derrick Henry is something that I'm very interested in as a buy low candidate. I'm also very much so interested in going after players like Devontae Adams or a Mike Evans at the moment. But in terms of your team, I don't think you need any of those things because you're stacked across the board. So I'm not panicking. I'm just keeping it rolling as we proceed here, fantasy. Thank you. LZ7 sends in a question, says, PPR double flex format, I'm 4-2 and I'm in second place. Baker, Judkins, Dobbins, Chase, JSN, Waller, Sutton, Vidal. Bench consisting of Hampton, Irving, Wilson, Mixon, and Hunter. Thinking of trading Baker and Chase for JSN for more JSN for more depth, excuse me. Okay, so considering what you have on roster, the idea of trading Baker while all of his top receivers are out, I don't think is a bad idea. If you can sell high on him right now, if he's going to have Godwin, Evans, and Ibuka out for the next, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks here, I don't think he's going to be a consistent enough starting option. I understand he's played well even with the backups, but he has a bye week ahead on top of it. It's just there's a conversation to be had. But as for trading JSN or Chase, I don't know why I would do that. Like in a double flex format, it makes sense. But ultimately, when I look at the team, you're going to soon get Irving back, so I'm not worried there. Mixon's always a wild card in this situation, so overall, I mean, I'd rather just keep what you have. Now, if you get an offer that you cannot refuse and they're giving you multiple incredible options, like someone's going to give you Derrick Henry and on top of it, I don't know, let's just throw out a Cortland Sutton and they're going to take, they're going to give you both those for the potential of a JSN. Like I could justify making that move primarily just because you're getting volume of, at this point you already have Sutton, but you know what I'm saying. Otherwise I keep. Unless someone gives you a trade in which you cannot decline, I keep what you have because you've got studs across the board that are dominating right now. So I'm not trying to get rid of Chase once, Flacco and him and get on the even further page. I mean, shoot, they're coming off an incredible week already, and that's just first game of them together. And JSN just continues the ball out. So, yeah, unless you get an offer that is undeniable and you just have to accept it, sure. Otherwise, no. Jeremy Torres sends in a question. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it, my man. Says full PPR double flex format. Okay. I'm currently 2-4. I have Rome Odunze, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Kenneth Walker, JCM, and Hall. Okay, let's see what your follow-up question is to that. It says, I traded Hampton for Breece Hall. Is that good or bad? No, I think that's fantastic, especially considering Hampton's probably going to miss the next 4 to 5 games. And at a current 2-4 record, it's a fantastic trade, in fact. So I think you're in a really good position. My only concern as of right now is how do we improve potentially? Well, I mean, I don't think we need to make any moves drastically at the moment. When I look at this, like obviously Kenneth Walker is the weakest link of the entire group, but being able to play Pickens, Rice, Jefferson, Odunze, or AJ Brown, depending on who has a bye week within that or the upcoming performance here, I think that's incredible for a double flex, double wide receiver, full PPR format. So I'm not really trying to get rid of any of these players. If anything, there may be a possibility in which you would look to try to make another trade for a running back, buying low on a Derrick Henry. Again, I've mentioned it ad nauseum as of late. If he's attached to a team in your league that does not have a great win-loss record, they're hitting a bye week here, you may be able to kind of steal the value off of their team in the form of Derrick Henry in order to provide running back depth to them, to try to give them the sense or the feeling that they may have the protection of not losing this week because they're filling in for Derrick Henry. His matchups ahead are going to be ridiculous. He's going to get Patrick Ricard back. He's going to get Lamar back. And the offense is going to be humming soon as they return from their week 7 bye. So in this circumstance, not really moving anything in terms of wide receiver. And if you can potentially go after a Henry, I wouldn't mind the potential of breaking off Kenneth Walker and a wide receiver in order to accomplish that. But the current wide receivers you have are stacked. So it may require a 2-for-2 trade where you're getting Derrick Henry and a lesser receiver back in exchange for AJ Brown Walker kind of mix. Thank you. All right, let's hear. iShine101 sends in a question. iShine, thank you. Says Sub Drew, is it worth to drop Godwin for Christian Watson? I'd probably say it depends on what the overall status of Chris Godwin is. Obviously, from what Todd Bowles said earlier yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, or the day before, he does not expect to see both Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving in play for this upcoming game. if this injury for Chris Godwin is significant enough to hold him out, they could hold him out until the week 9 bye, and he would then return in week 10, very similar to Emeka Egbuka. So in the event in which that is the case, if you need immediate wide receiver help in the upcoming next 2 to 3 games here, I wouldn't mind the swap, because again, you're pretty much picking up a wide receiver who has already passed his bye week, and you're giving him the shot of potentially just inhabiting your roster in the hopes that maybe he's fantasy relevant in the coming weeks. Now, once in fact Godwin does come back, assuming it is in week 10, he'll have to compete for targets with Evans, Abuka, Irving, White, Otten. Again, that's going to be a little bit of a tricky situation, to which I don't mind the idea of Christian Watson there, considering the touchdown upside he has so readily available to him on a consistent basis within that offense. Kevin John sends in a question, says in a half PPR, I was offered Javonte Williams for Nico Collins. Interesting. It says I'm in a double running back, triple wide receiver league. My wide receivers consisting of JJ, CD, Nico, Devontae, Alick. I have Hall, Chase Brown, Ramondre, Benson. Hold or make them move? It's a really good question. How do I want to go about this? Am I okay with the running backs you have? No. But am I willing to move Nico in this situation? Like, here's the thought process, right? It becomes a matter of like who has more inherent value for rest of season, Javonte or Nico Collins. And when I look at the upcoming schedule here for the Texans, let's see here. I'm gonna be honest. I don't mind their matchups, but I don't love it. I think there's still a lot left to be desired from what Nico has provided thus far this season in fantasy, especially considering his overall opportunity share of targets just hasn't been enough for me to like outright say, oh, you have to keep him. But I mean, do I want to start Devontae Smith every week? I think that becomes the next available question, to which like, okay, if I'm going to be in a position to where I'm trading for Javonte Williams in order to improve running back, can I justify the decision of playing Devontae Smith every week with the volatility that offense provides? To which, as of right now, I'm like, sheesh. Do I want to make this trade? I would probably, man, if you asked me 2-3 weeks ago, I would have told you, you know what? Let's just keep Nico. But I'm beginning to lean more and more towards the idea that in a half PPR, I'd rather just have the running back stability, because, I mean, Chase Brown looks like a ghost, a shell of himself. Hall is going to have an upcoming bye here. Ramondre, I mean, what is that? Benson at this point doesn't come back for a couple weeks. So I think the running back stability might actually be a little bit helpful in this situation. Attached to, a top 5 offense in the league, I'm okay taking the Javonte side there for this purpose. Thank you. William Gonzalez sends in a question, says, drop Harvey, Hendy, Sharbs, Godwin, DJ Moore, or Kendre Miller. If I'm dropping 2 of these available options, I can't drop Charbonnet, he's too valuable. I can't drop Hendy, he's too valuable. I think everybody else is subject to being dropped. I think Harvey's probably a little bit of a better hold at the moment, to which if I had to drop 2, it's probably Godwin and Kendre Miller at this point. I know DJ Moore, as of right now, he was hospitalized last night after the game. To be determined what the overall status of him is. I didn't get a read as to what exactly his issue was, but he is released and he's quote-unquote day-to-day. I think Luther Burden could be a pickup for those of us who are looking for a waiver wire pickup this week to help a wide receiver. But yeah, those would probably be the 2 drops there, Godwin and Kendre, especially considering Godwin's injury. And, obviously the expectation of him missing a considerable amount of time here upcoming, and the target competition that he'll have to face. And then additionally, Kendre Miller, he has value, but that's contingent to Alvin Kamara getting injured and or being traded. And I don't think either of those things are going to happen. All right, let's see here. Fernando Perez sends in a question. Thank you, Fernando. I appreciate it. It says, full PPR, rank these tight ends, Fanning, Ertz, Otten, drop Mason. Okay, so really quickly, drop Mason Taylor for one of them. Also, drop Tony Pollard for Tyjae Spears. No, I'd rather keep Tony Pollard. Tyjae Spears could be someone that gets some trade conversation. You know what? Even Tony Pollard and Spears could potentially be up for trade conversation in the coming weeks here. We'll have to wait and see if the organization wants to shell them out. To be determined as of right now. But as for picking up Fannin Ertz or Otten to drop Mason Taylor. Honestly, I think let's see here, NFL Week 7. Let's see what the matchups look like for these individual teams. So we have Fannin against the Dolphins, which honestly, they just gave up a bunch of points to opposing tight ends. We have the Jets versus the Panthers, who again, I think that's an actual advantageous matchup, especially if Garrett Wilson's going to miss. I would assume that Mason Taylor just hauls in every target. And then we have Washington against the Cowboys, which is as good of a matchup as you can get in the case of just a defense that can't stop a soul, usually across the board. And then Cade Otton, in the absence of all these threats, is so valuable. So if you just look across the board, I think all four are justifiably like startable within the upcoming week. Fannin, until I get 100% confirmation as to Njoku's status, I think I'd wait on that. I'd probably just, at this point, keep Taylor because man coverage is where he has struggled. Again, the Panthers are, as of right now, let me just see, thus far this season, if I had to, let me look at this upcoming stat here. Let's see what they're playing in terms of zone versus man coverage. The Carolina Panthers, as of this season, thus far, have only played about, they're playing about 84% zone coverage, and almost every reception that Mason Taylor has made this season is against zone. Justin Fields does not function well against man because his processing speed's not the greatest. He typically has to see it open before he lets it go. So if you're going to make a swap, you could. I'd honestly just keep Mason Taylor as long as Garrett Wilson's injured. Obviously, Mason Taylor has an upcoming bye in week 8, so you could look to just avoid that altogether entirely, to which I'd probably position myself to, I'm thinking, hold up, let's see here. I'm thinking I want Otten as the streamer, but let me see what the Dallas Cowboys have done against tight ends recently. I mean, that's also a really good matchup. If Njoku's that, I'll take Fannin. Otherwise, I'd probably go Ertz, Otten in that order. Otherwise, I'm keeping Mason Taylor because that's the number one preferred under the assumption that, of course, Garrett Wilson's out. Thank you. Jesse M sends in a question. Jesse, thank you very much. Jesse says, Hurts for Lamar. Yeah, absolutely. I would. Again, there's a lot of inherent risk there, but I think what Lamar can provide in terms of value can be of the MVP level-esque of what he has provided before, especially with the upcoming schedule ahead. I think it's going to be quite advantageous for them, but you have to understand that if you're going to make a trade of this caliber, it's incredibly high risk. He definitely does have MVP, aspirations of a high reward, and that's why I'm willing to take it. Since I have Josh Allen on a bye week this week, take the L with 2 on bye. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. 6-0, let's make it. It's definitely very much so risky, but it's a risk that I'm willing to take in this regard. Obviously, you don't have to take the risk. You can just hold on to what you have, but I'd be willing to make the move. Thank you. To the Max says, "What's up, Andrew? In a full PPR, who would you pick up off of the waivers, Vidal or Dowdle?" So first and foremost, I think as of this moment, I'd probably pick up Dowdle just off of the sheer volume of fantasy points he's put together as of late. Leads me to believe that he is going to be involved in this backfield for the remainder of the season. As to what capacity, whether that be starter or as a rotationary committee, it doesn't really matter. The value he'll provide for rest of season, I think, will be low-end RB2, even if Chuba Hubbard is getting run, or a potential flex option every week. So his value has pretty much been kind of set forth as a 100% baseline starter for fantasy purposes, regardless of how this turns out. Now, in the event in which Chuba Hubbard returns and Dowdle just disappears outright, I would call for malpractice and a firing of head coaches. But until then, I think Dowdle, because he has the long-term value rest of season, I think that's what I would rather have. Obviously, Vidal has a little bit more value as of the next 4 weeks until Hampton returns. But until then, I mean, again, you're going to get a greater value point out of Vidal in that circumstance under the assumption that Chuba does return sooner rather than later. If Chuba doesn't return, then Dowdle becomes even more valuable in the short term, to which, again, doubles down on that idea of which I would prefer Dowdle. Second question, I have Fields. Who do I pick up, Dart, Purdy, or Rodgers? Thanks, Andrew. Okay, as of those available, I don't know if Purdy's going to play. Again, we've heard some information regarding a setback, regarding the toe injury, the turf toe that he's dealing with. Rodgers against Cincinnati is okay, but again, he'll probably get you 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. In a 4-point per passing touchdown league, what are we talking about there? We're talking about the potential where he can get you 16 points. That's basically it. To which if I'm leaning towards either Rodgers, Fields, or Dart, I would rather play one of these two mobile quarterbacks in specific. I'd rather just roll Fields out there or Dart just purely off of rushing potential for upside in comparison to Rodgers at that point. It's not to say that Rodgers can't throw for 3 touchdowns. It's just the offense isn't really predicated on getting that, that kind of burn out of him, except for week 1. So if Purdy was available, I tell you that's the guy I'm starting. In the event in which you have to start between Fields and Dart, if Garrett Wilson's out, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable just rolling Dart, even against the Denver Broncos this week, genuinely. But as of right now, yeah, it's just my fear of them stacking the box against Fields and him not being able to do much because his starting receivers are Allen Lazard and Josh Reynolds, which, again, scares me. Dragon the Beast says, should I take Jacoby Myers out of my team? He sucks. We're going to hope that he gets traded. Again, there's a lot of wide receivers in the there's a lot of teams in the National Football League right now that need wide receivers in specific. So a couple of the teams that are in desperate need of wide receiver help, in my mind, and I think that up and coming for the trade deadline, they could be looking in the direction of Jacoby Myers because, of course, this offseason, prior to the season beginning, he definitely had himself his fair share of words in terms of, hey, I want to be traded. I don't want to be here anymore. So teams that may be looking for a wide receiver of the caliber of Jacoby Myers may include the Buffalo Bills. The Pittsburgh Steelers could be in looks for a potential wide receiver in this circumstance. I think there could be a conversation in which potentially, no, I don't think any of those teams. I think the Washington Commanders, depending on what the situation is with Terry McLaurin, could venture that path, but I doubt it. But again, there's always a possibility. I think there could be a conversation in regards to the Buccaneers, depending on their injuries at wide receiver, could be looking for a wide receiver. I mean, they're 5-1. They've got Super Bowl aspirations. Why not go get a guy that's at the end of his deal and try to make a run at it? Outside of that, I think that's basically the primaries. Anything outside of that would be a little bit unknown, or at least a little bit of a shock to me for that to be a potential trade landing spot. Maybe if the Panthers felt so justified in like trading for him and signing him, but I don't think they need him in the long run. So yeah, that's the only reason you would keep him is for the potential which he gets traded to one of those top tier organizations that need wide receiver help. Like I mentioned, the Steelers, the Bills, potentially the Buccaneers, something of that exchange. Otherwise, yes, I do agree. He does suck. Thank you. And honestly, it's not really him. It's also the lack of opportunity that he's getting in terms of target opportunity, but that's a different conversation for a different time. Alex Ruiz sends in a question. It says, PPR, would you trade my Christian McCaffrey and Tetairoa McMillan for James Cook and Amon-Ra? I would. Yes, absolutely. I would. I think what James Cook has provided in the last 2 weeks makes him a perfect buy low candidate. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is such an incredible PPR stud. I understand that Christian McCaffrey's overall utilization as of late has been really solid, but I think once you get Kittle, Pearsall, Ayuk, Jennings at a full capacity back into the lineup, I think his overall targets and his reception count are going to diminish, to which once they do, it will make him a lesser option effectively. So yes, bask in the glory of what CMC is able to produce now, but in the soon-to-be future, expect for a little bit less production in that overall capacity. Says, how do we feel about trading away Christian McCaffrey? I don't love the idea, but in this case, what you're getting in return is so valuable to which I'm willing to make that move. Says, also for this week, Otten, Mayer, or Ingram at tight end. If I was going to, let's see here. I'm curious what Ingram has the New York Giants. I'm not so keen on, I think Ingram is more of a, I'd rather have him for rest of season purposes. That's kind of the reason why I would ever suggest him in comparison to Mayer and Otten, who are a lot, I guess, excuse me, a lot more stable kind of streaming options for the given week. If I had to establish out of the availables which one I prefer just as a 1 week, throw them out there and hope for the best. As of right now, considering I have it ranked as, at least in yesterday's waiver wire episode, as Mayer a little bit higher, I would go for Mayer in that situation. In the event in which you're looking for Otten for multiple weeks, because again, they have 2 weeks here prior to the bye, you could roll with Otten, but that's under the assumption that, again, Evans, Ibuka, and Godwin are all out for that stretch of time. If they are Otten, sure, 2 week stretch, fantastic play for both weeks. If you're just looking for this week in specific, because let's say your tight end returns next week because you have Kincaid, for example, then Mayer would be the play for this week. Thank you. All right, Fantasy Forecast says, early question, Should I trade JCM, Judkins, Sutton for Achane? I don't understand the trade. Would you trade JCM, Judkins, and Sutton for Achane? Or JCM and Sutton for Devontae Adams? I don't like any of those trades, to be honest. I don't think what Achane provides is even remotely close to what all three of these guys will provide to your team. Looking at your roster, sure, you're stacked with depth, but I don't like any of these trades, to be honest. If I was going to move Sutton off my team, I think Sutton is actually more valuable than Adams rest of the season. Like 1-for-1, they're more valuable. Unless Puka Nacua is going to the IR, I couldn't justify that trade. And yeah, losing that value for just Achane doesn't make sense to me at the moment. Unless there's some sort of scoring format differential in which you have in your league that I'm not aware of. I'm not interested in either of those kind of moves. Mo Money sends in a question. Mo Money, thank you. Says 3-3, 10-team PPR. Again, really, actually, let's go back here really quickly just to address this. If you were going to move, theoretically, pieces for Achane, like, okay, let's say, for example, you with Rashad White, Bucky Irving combo, okay? And then you additionally have Javonte, and you have Bill. And then on top of it, also have JCM, I guess, somewhere in this that I don't, yeah, Bill, okay, yeah. And then you have Judkins right here. In the event in which you were trading for Achane, it genuinely would just take these two to do it. It shouldn't take three. And even, like, yeah, that would be the argument. It would just take these two. If it took more than those two, then the guy you're trading with is not worth trading with, period. Thank you. Okay, Mo Money says, I'm 3-3 in a 10-team PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. Team, May, Fields, Judkins, Alvin Kamara, Travion, RJ Manunga, and Mixon. Wide receivers are Amon-Ra St. Brown, JSN, Rome Odunze, BTJ, and Worthy. Tight end is Kelsey. Any advice? Yeah, I mean, like at this point, your RB2 is just dreadful. It's in a really bad position. If Mixon was going to come back tomorrow, maybe you'd be saved. But at this point, the thing is, your wide receivers are so impactful because of the double wide receiver, double flex PPR format. Like, I don't really want to make a move. Like, I'd be willing to just hold on to Judkins, AK, as my starting 2 until further notice in hopes that Travion Henderson breaks out. But I don't want to move these players unless you're going to get back 2 players in return, to which one can be your automatic starting RB, and then the other could also contribute as a flex option every week. Otherwise, I just hold because of the pure value which these 4 wide receivers are carrying your team at. In the event in which you wanted to move like Worthy and one of these running backs for a running back in exchange, sure, you can do that. But once bye weeks come along here, again, like BTJ is going to be out on bye next week. And then JSN is also out on bye next week. You would want to keep Worthy for that depth piece, right? So I don't think you need to make a move. Again, if you're going to go 2 for 2, or 1 for 1, sure, you can make that kind of an adjustment. But again, I'm not trying to move these studs. May is fantastic. Kelsey's been great as of late. Again, I think Kelsey's value might dip once Rashee Rice returns. So you might want to sell on Kelsey. Again, that's just a potential advice here, because if you look at last season, weeks 1 through 4, prior to Rashee Rice going down with that injury, Kelsey was a non-factor within the offense because they both inhabit the same slot receiving role over the middle of the field, in which Rice, once he returns this week, is going to start sapping a lot of that value from Kels. So you could look to try to move Kels, try to get another tight end, and see if you can try to upgrade an RB potentially this week. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Fernando that I just saw. I don't know where it went. There it is. Fernando Mendez. Fernando, thank you. It says, PPR, do I drop Ricky for JMO? Do I drop Ricky for JMO? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Njoku for Fannin, yes. That I'm okay with, because, again, Njoku, a little bit of a questionable situation with his knee. Ricky for JMO, yeah, I think the argument becomes, like, even when Kittle, Jennings, Ayuk, and everybody is back, is Pearsall going to be able to survive? Again, that's a to-be-determined thing. Again, because we haven't seen Ricky active for a while, I think he'll be back this week, but I think I'd rather honestly have JMO in this situation, because there's going to be so much target competition within that offense. Like, Ricky Pearsall's value this offseason was purely based on there's no target competition. Him getting injured kills it. I mean, you've seen what we have, we've all witnessed what has happened in the last 2 weeks here alone, with Kendrick Bourne being the primary number 1. There's so much value to be had at that wide receiver position for San Francisco. It's just a matter of, like, the current situation is just dreadful because of the unfortunate injury. So I don't mind their going JMO. But again, you understand that the high volatility, high risk here that involves him. It makes him very much so sketchy. You might want to drop him 1 week from now because of how pissed you are that he puts up a 4-point week. So just understand the volatility there. He's not a weekly starter. He's only someone that you're able to potentially roll in a potential shootout. Chico 410 says, was offered Jefferson for Flowers and Judkins. Thoughts? Depends on what your running back depth looks like. I can justify making this move, especially depending on your record. But it depends on what running back looks like. If you're going to be in a really tough position losing Judkins, then I probably just keep what you have because I think Flowers is only going to improve after the bye week here and Lamar coming back, just like what Flowers looked like early on in the season. A lot of target opportunity, a lot of volume. So unless running back is just super stable, I wouldn't consider this. Or I would consider it only in that case. Otherwise, I wouldn't. Jeremy Torres says, sorry, the question was, who do I start? Thanks. Okay. So let's see here. In a double wide receiver, flex RB league, who do you start? I mean, as of right now, Rashee Rice has to start. He's been in the hyperbolic time chamber like he's Goku. So we've got to fire him up. That's a given. On top of it, George Pickens has been playing out of his mind. The current game up ahead against Washington has a 54.5 point total. While the number one coverage is going to be pulled by Lamb, expect for George Pickens against number 2 wide receivers to dominate. So those are my primary 1-2 wide receivers. Then we look at running back here. Obviously, I'm playing JCM and Hall between the available 3. To which then it becomes a question of who am I flexing? Justin Jefferson gets to start regardless of which quarterback sits there. And then it becomes a combo between A.J. Brown and Rome Odunze. Chicago versus New Orleans is an interesting one. And then Philadelphia versus Minnesota is also quite interesting. I think I probably play Rome alongside of Jefferson. I probably leave AJ on my bench. Thank you. Spencer James sends in a question. Says, trade Kendrick Bourne for Chase Brown or stick with Bam. No, I'm willing to make this move just because it is the smartest move to make. I mean, you would still stick with Bam in this situation. But the reality is Kendrick Bourne disappears next week. As soon as Pearsall, Jennings, Kittle, eventually in a couple more weeks from that, like 4 weeks from now, Ayuk returns. At that point, Kendrick Bourne is an afterthought within this offense. So, yeah, I'll take this trade. That's not a problem at all. Mario Robles sends in a question. Thank you, Mario. I appreciate it, my man. All right, Mario says the following. He says, Drake for Puka. I got offered Odunze, and he said no. I offered Odunze, he said no. Okay, so in the event in which you could trade Drake London and get Puka Nacua in return, I would say yes, under the assumption that Puka Nacua's injury is not going to hold him out until, anything further than their bye week. So I would assume going into London this week, in order to play it safe, unless he is really not dealing with too much of an injury there, and it was just kind of on that one-day situation, if Puka's, let's say he misses this week, they go on a bye, and he's expected to return in week 9. I think that's a beautiful trade. I'll take Puka Nacua 10 times out of 10. In the event in which he's going to the IR, then it becomes a question of like, what is your team's win-loss record, and can you afford to have Puka on roster in comparison to Drake London, who is past his bye? So that becomes the reality of the situation, to which, again, if we're if we're leaning towards him returning sooner rather than later, yeah, I'll take Puka. He's going to finish as wide receiver 1 this season. Juan Vaca Ramirez sends in a question. Thank you, Juan. I appreciate it, my man. Says, if you were to, in my shoes, would you trade away Worthy, Etienne, JCM for St. Brown and Rashad White? Or Worthy, Etienne for St. Brown? My other running backs and wide receivers and tight ends are Bucky, Javonte, DK, Sutton, McBride, and Kittle. Okay, so with the current context of what you have on roster, I'm assuming once you get Kittle back, he's going to be your flex, while McBride is going to be your starting tight end, which I think works perfectly. To which then at that point, you would be starting Javonte, DK, Sutton. Oh my God. You got pretty good players here. So let's put this into perspective. ETN, JCM, St. Brown Worthy. Okay, so in my opinion, giving away these 2 players, ETN and JCM, is too much in exchange for this, because White is a fading commodity, because again, Bucky Irving is eventually going to return. So I think securing the handcuff obviously makes sense, but in the case of which you're giving 2 starting running backs in order to accomplish this on a fading commodity, yes, you're getting St. Brown, but you're giving really a 3-for-1 in here, because White really won't even ever start for your team henceforth, to which I would rather just do this trade. This is a automatic smash trade in my mind. Getting St. Brown for Worthy, who is going to be diminished in his overall opportunity share because Rashee Rice is going to be such a target hog. And then ETN here, I think this is an automatic smash trade. I would take this one. Give me St. Brown for Worthy and ETN rest of the way in my mind. Thank you, Juan. Appreciate it. Esteban Simon sends in a question. Says in a 12-team full PPR 2-4, would you trade Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers for BTJ and Terry McLaurin? My wide receivers are Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Jacoby Myers, and my running backs are Gibbs, Hampton, and Javonte. So as of right now, in terms of running backs, you're solid with Gibbs and Javonte. Obviously, there'll be some upcoming bye weeks ahead in which, eventually you'll get Hampton back in due time for the playoffs. So I'm not really too worried about your situation there at running back. Hopefully you have another running back on roster that can fill in for the upcoming buys, but specifically making a trade in which you're moving Adams and Jacoby for BTJ and Terry McLaurin, I would absolutely say yes. I think at this point, as long as Puka Nacua's injury is not going to send him to the IR, I think Adams is, again, he's going to be relevant for, this week, and then they're going to hit a bye, and then they're going to come back, and he's going to go back to being what he was, to which I would rather have BTJ than him, absolutely, rest of the season. And then in regards to Jacoby Myers and Terry McLaurin, it doesn't matter where Jacoby Myers gets traded. He is not going to be more valuable than what Terry McLaurin will be to the Washington Commanders once he is back from injury. So yes, give me BTJ and Terry rest of the way. Esteban, thank you. All right, Drew, what's up, my man? Says, how much fab should I spend for Kamani Vidal? For this team is in Discord. Okay, let me check out my phone real quick. Let's see what you had. Okay, I see that you sent me 2 pictures, Drew. Let me check that out right now. My apologies. How much fab should I spend on Kamani Vidal? Here's my team. Okay, so you have Quinshon Judkins. You have Jordan Mason. You have, who else are you running back? You have Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears. I mean, look, as of right now, considering the value at which Vidal would provide your team, like I wouldn't mind starting him over a couple of your alternative options here in regards to your double flex format, because looking at your bench, I think he would be your best player, and I think there would be an argument to be made in regards to playing him over Worthy in some circumstances, and that BTJ is going on bye next week, and there's you can fill him in there. I think there's a lot of value to be had in Kamani Vidal. Now, as for the value at which he provides, understand that Hampton's probably going to miss the next 4 to 5 weeks. We did hear another report earlier today that the Chargers are still having preliminary discussions in regards to trading for a running back, to which that scares me even further for Vidal, to which, yes, I want to value him highly this week, and I think he could provide you a lot of value right now. But in terms of the long-term evaluation of Vidal, he's still a 4-week player that could be impacted by a potential trade in which the Chargers make in the coming next 3 weeks. Now, if a trade was going to be made, it could happen any day now. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 3 weeks from now prior to the November 4th deadline, 1 p.m. ET. So in this event, I'm willing to spend upwards of, let's say, assuming he's starting for you. Again, because I'm not making the pickup unless he is starting for you. Mason's past his bye, but next week Aaron Jones comes back, so that there's some conversation there where he could start in that sense. I don't mind the potentials of ripping 15% here, assuming he starts for you. But again, I'm only willing to spend that much because I don't think you're in desperate need for running back. You still have Judkins, Mason, and Kamara. And I think all 3 of those can be serviceable. To the extent to where you don't have to rip 15 or more than 15%, to where you have to go for a 25% kind of drop. You don't have Hampton. You're not in that much of a desperate position. So 15, I think, is very much so doable. You could just uptick it to 17 if you really want him. And again, looking at your upcoming bye weeks, if it's a desperate kind of position, sure. But again, I think there's a lot of inherent risk because he's a fleeting commodity when Hampton comes back and the Chargers continuing to discuss trades with other teams for running back. David Dooley sends in a question. David, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It says, half PPR, drop Carter, Marks, Algier, or Aaron Jones for Vidal. If I was going to drop a player, it would either be one of these two, most likely. Aaron Jones is not droppable because he's going to have inherent fantasy value once returning, assuming that's going to be next week for him. As for Michael Carter, he's a fleeting commodity in comparison to these two. Woody Marks could be a fleeting commodity in the event in which, of course, Joe Mixon returns. But if Joe Mixon gets shut down for the rest of the year, Marks has incredible value because we are hoping he'll eventually take over for Nick Chubb. To which Algier, when he's attached to the offense he's attached to and he's getting just as much spin as some of these other running backs, I think Carter would be your drop in this circumstance. I understand that Carter still has value, but as of right now, considering the timeline, considering Bam Knight's usage, considering Trey Benson's return, he's your drop. Steve sends in a question. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it, my man. Says, what do I do with my wide receivers? I have DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Ricky Pearsall, and Travis Hunter. Well, I think Travis Hunter's droppable. I think Terry McLaurin is someone that, again, I'm if I'm not in your position, if I'm actually in somebody else's position, I would try to buy low on Terry in the event in which that's possible. DJ Moore's injured. He may not even play this week. Ricky Pearsall's still injured. He may not play this week. So you're in a really tough position to which you can try to fire sale, but ultimately selling injured players is going to be incredibly difficult. You're probably in your best interest looking for wide receivers on the waiver wire. You're dropping Hunter. You're trying to pick up players to kind of fill in the meanwhile. I think that there's even a discussion in which you can drop DJ Moore, primarily because you are in desperate need. Like at least like Ricky Pearsall can immediately be thrown onto the IR. DJ Moore might just be questionable the whole week. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that's kind of what we have to do because trading them is going to be really difficult unless there is someone in your league that they're interested in Terry McLaurin. Maybe Terry returns this week. You never know. So we'll have to wait and see. Chris R sends in a question. Says drop DJ Moore for Luther Burden. Yup. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Again, I've said it for the last couple of weeks. I think there's a possibility in which DJ Moore could be someone that is traded in the coming days here. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are very much so in need of a wide receiver. I also think that the same thing exists for the Buffalo Bills, to which they could be looking in the direction of trading for DJ Moore. But it depends on what the organization really feels like in regards to their potential kind of confidence in Luther Burden rest of the way. But as of right now, I think if Moore misses time, Luther Burden could make that decision easier for the organization if he plays and he plays well in that exact role. Steve says, all my wide receivers after JJ are trash. Running backs and QBs are fire. Okay. I think my YouTube's about to crash, but let me just open this up. So with this context, running backs and QBs are fire. When you say QB, okay, so then my question would be, depending on who your quarterback is it worth keeping the quarterback that you have on roster or trading that quarterback, if potentially possible, in order to get some wide receiver help, and then evidently pick up a streaming quarterback, every week, maybe a Sam Darnold or a CJ Stroud or something like that, or a Trevor Lawrence. Maybe Purdy is on the waiver and you could pick him up, and once he comes back, he could be of value to you. I think that could be a discussion that could be had. Otherwise, you could also send away a running back if you have a stud one and trade it for a running back wide receiver combo in exchange. Otherwise, if you think that what you have at JJ, RB, quarterback, tight end can make up for the deficiencies here, then you can just keep rolling until Terry gets healthy, and then you won't have a problem. Ryan Thompson sends in a question. Ryan, thank you. Says, I need a running back. I have two trades. Okay. Two trades ideas, excuse me. Says trade Pearsall for Montgomery. If you can get away with that, you should immediately do it. Immediately. Or trade Mahomes, JJ, and Pearsall for Olave and Bijan. Interesting trade. I think what's your backup quarterback? It says I have Purdy and Dart. Look, Mahomes right now for fantasy purposes is playing out of his absolute mind, and he only now is going to get back the return of Rashee Rice, to which with no running game, with him being the leading rusher and the leading rushing touchdown scorer of the team, I mean, Mahomes has really just revised his entire fantasy value. This being said, I don't mind. Honestly, what Dart has done and what Purdy will do with all the weapons, I don't mind this trade. I don't know what your running backs look like as of right now, but obviously based on both of these trades, you're indicating that you are in need of running back, to which in this case, I don't mind this trade at all. I would take the Bijan side of this deal, and I would go and I would get Purdy and Dart, and I would just roll with it as such going forward. Because what this guy can provide legitimately could be upwards of 25 points per game every week rest of the season. And what Olave is doing is outstanding. So his value point is continuing to creep forward. Dave, 1231 sends in a question. Dave, I just see the the dog emoji. If you have a question, type it in the chat. Thanks, man. Samaj sends in a question, says trade advice in comments. PPR double flex, no defensive league. Okay, cool. Says my offer Bowers, Addison, and DK Metcalf for JSN, Theo Johnson, and Michael Carter. Look, here's the thing. When I look at this trade as a whole, I see a 3-for-1. I see Michael Carter, a fleeting commodity. I see Theo Johnson, where there are many of other great tight ends available, in which maybe he's not the guy that we want, especially going into this upcoming week. For Bowers, Addison, and Metcalf, which are three different prospects for just one JSN. Says, mine, the rest of my roster is Daniel Jones, Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, Debo Njoku, Mason Pinheiro, Benson Sharps, Henry, Luke, Mack, Bo Nick, Stafford. Okay, looking at the current iteration of your roster, I think I would rather have Bowers over Njoku. I'd rather have Metcalf as my potential flex option and Addison also contributing in the event in which Debo misses any time with a potential heel injury, anything of that nature. Like, if you want to make the 3-for-1, you can. I just don't see the worth in it. I think I'd rather just have Bowers, Metcalf, Addison, because I really don't see, or I don't put much value into these players. If you were to get a better combination, JSN and another player, 3-for-2, to which that other player is more valuable than the combo of Theo and Michael Carter combined, I'd be okay with it. Worried because JSN could win the league, and I'm currently 3-3. Garrett Wilson and Pearsall. What does Garrett Wilson and Pearsall have to do with this? Is this your other wide receivers? If these are your other wide receivers on roster that weren't mentioned here, then that could change a little bit of my overall thought process, because then at that point you are stacked the wide receiver and you don't theoretically need Metcalf. But again, it's very much dependent on whether that is the case. I'm not sure what exactly the Garrett Wilson Pearsall comment was in specific, or why it was there. Let me go ahead. Sorry about that. My YouTube crashed, so I need to go ahead and readjust this on screen real quick. All right, so let's go back here. Samaj, let's see. Worried about JSN. Worried because JSN could win my league, but I'm currently 3-3. Yeah, again, if you have Garrett Wilson and Pearsall here on top of this team, where you have Christian McCaffrey, Montgomery, Debo, at that point, okay, we can make that move, and I wouldn't even bat an eye, even a 3-for-1. But that's only because you have the depth at which you have, to where you can start Garrett Wilson, Debo Samuel, and JSN every week, Christian McCaffrey alongside of Montgomery. Yes, tight end takes a little bit of a dip there, but again, Bauer's not even healthy right now, so he's not even truly contributing, but eventually will. And I still think you can go to the waiver wire and pick up potentially better options than what you have on roster, hopefully with Njoku there injured and Hunter Henry quite inconsistent. So in the case in which you do have Garrett, that's fine. I'm okay with it. It is risky, but you're in a position where you have enough depth to accomplish it, and it's fine. Okay, nothing here from Dave. We had a question from King, who says, Genty and Golden for Waddle and Kamara. I'm currently 5-1. If it's in a full PPR, Christian Watson returning eventually, into Jaden Reed eventually returning, I think I could see the justification of the move. I think Waddle versus Genty in a full PPR, there are discussions to be had in regards to the value. Here's the thing. I think Genty is going to still be really legit rest of the season. I think the whole contingency question as of right now, it's just a matter of like, is Kamara going to be enough? I'll take the deal. That's fine. I'm willing to buy the risk. That's fine. I think there's enough value in what Waddle presents every week, to which, I mean, and this is every week going forward, to where I think he is enough of a point to where I'm willing to make this move. But again, there is inherent risk. Like the Jeans, it says in a PPR, I have Puka, Lamb, Rice, Terry, Dobbins, Walker, Mason, Harvey, Sharps, Tyler Warren, and Waller. The Derrick Henry manager is open and asked for Dobbins and Warren. What do I counter with to keep Warren? You give him Waller. Yeah, you can say, hey, listen, you can have Dobbins, but I'm giving you Waller, because I can't give you two 15-point players for one guy that can't even break 15 in the last 2 months. And that's it, purely because Waller, what he has provided is enough alongside of Dobbins to where this can get this deal secured, finished, done. He cannot have Warren, excuse me. Warren is just too much. I mean, you could even argue that Warren is more valuable than Derrick Henry 1-for-1 right now. If he wants to do that, then we can take that deal. Otherwise, no. Godwin for the win says, play Adams or Adunze. Under the assumption that Puka is out, I would just play Adams this week. But if not, then we'll see by tomorrow's overall rankings. Kevin says in the chat, Brody, thank you. Kevin says, what's up, Drew? In a 10-team PPR, do I drop Kyler for Dart or Purdy rest of season? I would say yes. In the event in which you can get both, fantastic. Otherwise, I think the rushing upside that Dart provides is a little bit too much not to go after. Also, drop Godwin/DJ Moore for Coker and Bourne. I would say yes to both of those as well. Also, drop Henry for Ertz or Fanning. I would be willing to take, you know what? Yes to every single one of these questions. You're on the right track here, Kevin, but it's just a matter of like, where do we go in terms of prioritization? To which right now, I think securing your quarterback of the future is very much so of value. To which then the second most valuable thing, I think in my mind, would end up probably being depending on what your bye weeks, injuries, and current roster looks like. To which, if that does primarily revolve around prioritizing wide receiver, you can go about that. Otherwise, I think going after one of these two is probably better off, especially if Njoku misses any time. Let me see what the Njoku situation is. Also, yeah, the first thing that I read here is David Njoku linked in potential trade. We'll see. So as of right now, Fannon's probably the guy. David Njoku diagnosed with a knee injury following his loss. Yeah, we'll see. Again, to be determined what the status is. But if I had to choose, I'd probably rather have Fannin, even though I do like that Ertz matchup this week a lot because of the Dallas Cowboys. G Medina says, hello, I'm weak at wide receiver. My depth looks like Lamb, Quentin Johnston, Dobbs, Higgins, J-Mo. Tucker, should I hold or drop one to pick up a waiver like Booty, Bourne, Whittington, Humphrey, or Burden? Well, think about it this way, right? Booty has been incredibly inconsistent this season, so I wouldn't expect him to all of a sudden become consistent. Whittington is a 1 week play. Humphrey, as in like Lil Jordan Humphrey, is playing against the Broncos. No, thank you. Burden is only as relevant as DJ Moore is injured. And Bourne is only as relevant as Pearsall, Kittle, Jennings, Ayuk are missing. So, and Mac Jones is starting. So, to continue to further my current position here, I legitimately would rather keep everything that you currently have than make a swap, because Lamb is coming back this week. Johnston will get healthy. Dobbs is still the number one. Higgins is only getting better with the opportunity share that he's getting from actual talented quarterback. J-Mo has himself ups and downs, but still very valuable. And Tucker could get himself a huge boost here if Jacoby Myers is traded in the coming weeks. All right, continuing on, we had a question from JV816. Says, I traded Keenan Allen for Judkins. Incredible. Congratulations. Firm handshakes, brother. That's incredible. Says, I have A.J. Brown, Tedderroll, McMillan, and JSN. Running backs, I have our JT and Javonte Williams, JCM, Walker. Who should I start at wide receiver and flex? We'll trade running back for wide receiver later. I don't even think you need to, but I mean, as of right now, if we're looking at who to start at wide receiver and flex, JSN starts every week until the end of time, maybe even in his bye week. Who knows? But as of right now, no, all jokes aside, it would probably end up being a JSN alongside of AJ Brown probably start this week, because I don't really want to deal with Tedderroll McMillan against, Sauce Gardner. So JSN and AJB would probably start in this circumstance, to which at running back, we know we're starting Javonte Williams. And, as of right now, I would actually start JT and Judkins as your running backs, and then I would flex Javonte Williams there. Thank you. PC says PPR send Judkins and Swift for Gibbs and McLaurin. I would take that deal. Give me Gibbs and McLaurin. If your running back depth can sustain that, because you're giving up a 2 running back for 1, if you have enough depth alongside of Gibbs to be able to sustain that kind of a move, then sure, I'll take that, because I do think McLaurin will be a very much so good value. Wow, English. He's going to have great value going forward. Good value, yeah. Yeah. Pixel Nomad 47 says 14 team, 2-4 in this current league. I have Allen, I have Jacobs, I have Javonte, Jefferson, Sutton, Wilson. Wow. If you told me this was your team, I would say, man, you must have a 4-2 record. And Goddard, brother, how the heck are you 2-4? That is interesting, because this team is, this is a really good team. It says trade Javonte and Sutton for ETN, DK, and Marv. I don't think it's necessary. I think you just keep what you have. I look at the team. If it's a double flex format to where you have to start, let's see here. You have 1, and then you have 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. Sorry, you have 3 wide receivers and 1. Okay, so if it's a double flex, double wide receiver format, or 3 wide receivers, 1 flex league, I could justify it if the upcoming bye weeks are going to be just disastrous. But considering Jacobs and Jefferson are already past their bye weeks, I understand that Wilson will have one soon. Swift is already past his bye. So Wilson, Sutton, and Javonte will have to, have bye weeks ahead. But ultimately, I don't think it's necessary, because the way that I see it, I prefer Javonte over ETN, and I prefer Sutton over both those wide receivers individually, one-on-one. Yes, you do get more depth, but it's not really a question of whether you really need depth right now. If you think you need the depth in a 14-team league, then you make the trade. But I don't think you need it. I think I just keep what you have, because when I look at that roster, I think wins are definitely ahead. Assuming, again, bye weeks don't kill you. And when I look at the schedule, it's not going to. I think you'll be fine there, Pixel. JV says, for my last question, should I trade RB for a more consistent wide receiver? League is very tight. Someone wants JCM for Waddle. Yeah, I'll take Waddle. They want JCM, they can give me Waddle. That sounds good for me. Yeah. I'm all in on that. Now, again, then it lands you in a position to where you might have a little bit too much wide receiver depth when you have AJ Brown, Ted Earl, McMillan, and JCN and Waddle, to which then you have to trade either Ted or AJB. That has to flip immediately afterward. If that's not going to be a possibility, then it's maybe not the best overall move. Luke C says, quarterbacks, Knicks drop Isaiah Davis for Darnold or Purdy. Play 2 matchups. If I'm going to play the matchups going forward, like Darnold this week against Houston, again, even though Houston's not the best potential matchup, Purdy specifically this week could, if he in fact is available, could be a great play, but I don't think he actually does play. So if I was in your position, I drop Isaiah Davis for Purdy. I think I would rather have him over Darnold, but then again, the injury risk, it's a little bit sketchy, but man. What's the chances they shut him down after Fred Warner just got hurt? I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know. If Purdy gets shut down, I would regret not picking up Darnold. But at the same time, like Darnold's going on a bye here in week 8. So he will be eventually dropped. I pick up Purdy for Isaiah Davis. Thank you. And I probably start Knicks this week out of the group. All right. Samaj says, I'm the one with JSN in this trade scenario. Or you're the one with so I'd be sending JSN for Bowers. Oh, okay. Yeah, that works for me. That works. I don't have an issue with that. Because you're getting the depth you require. Cool. My only concern beforehand was that you were getting rid of the depth. But this being said, if you have JSN, Garrett Wilson, Deebo Samuel right now, with the current iteration of what, you know what the thing is? I found myself justifying keeping JSN based on what we discussed. To which you don't have to make this move. If you want to, and if Bowers has a little bit, like my only concern is, yes, Bowers returns in week, what is it? After this week, he's going to miss. He's going to miss next week. He'll return in week 9. If you can wait until then, sure. But otherwise, I think I just keep JSN. I justified it in my own head with all the discussion I had with myself there for a while. So I'll just keep. Even though conventional wisdom tells me to make the trade. But I think you have enough depth to kind of survive. Alex G. Hernandez says, Andrew, trade Olave and Derrick Henry and BTJ for Baker, Swift, Shakir, or Olave, Henry for Baker and JCM. Okay, so Olave, Derrick Henry, BTJ for Baker, Swift, Shakir. I don't like this trade. Not interested at all. Not even a little bit. Olave, Henry for Baker and JCM. I also am not very much so interested in that, because if you're trading for Baker Mayfield, you are looking forward to once Egbuka, Evans, and Godwin are back, which isn't going to be until week 10. To which at this point, I'm not making that trade. I'd rather keep what you have on roster, because I think what Henry is going to be able to provide and the quarterbacks you currently do have are more valuable. I'm not really too interested in either of those two trades. I'd keep what you have. I think you're giving up way too much for just quarterback, who's, again, not going to be as valuable as we may perceive in the coming weeks here ahead. Once his value goes down because of the injuries, you may be able to scoop him then after because of the buy low capacity. Johnny Kilroy says, would it be crazy to play Carolina's defense over the Steelers' defense? Worried about Chase going off? I wouldn't say it's crazy. No, I don't think it's crazy. I think, again, if Fields does not have a starting number 1 wide receiver, it could be a little bit ugly. But who knows? Maybe they run the ball all over Carolina. Again, any given Sunday, right? But in this scenario, am I thinking it's a crazy decision to sit the Steelers' defense? Let's see here. Yeah, I think it's crazy to sit the Steelers. I'd probably play them. Because, I mean, when I look at what the... Sorry about that. Let me just pack this up. There it is. Like, no, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. I'm okay with it. If you want to go about it that way because of the Thursday night antics, of which is crazy football, I don't mind it. That's fine. Kurt Allen sends in a question. Kurt, thank you. I appreciate it. It says, I'm currently 2-4 in a half PPR 10-team league. I'm not sure if I should dump the last of my fab on Vidal. My running backs are Bijan, Chase Brown, Charbonnet, Woody, Haskins, Rice, Egbuka, McConkey, Tedderall, McMillan, and AJ Brown are my wide receivers. I need an RB2. Yeah, if I was in your position, you probably shouldn't. I think you're probably in a better position to sell at wide receiver here in the event in which you wanted to get an RB. I think there's a possibility in which in your league, someone may be interested in Chase Brown and you can attach Tedderall, McMillan on top of it or AJ Brown on top of it. Or even go even further beyond that, go to a team that has a 4-2 record, 5-1, 6-0, and offer them Egbuka and say, hey, listen, you want the keys to the kingdom? Give me a good running back in return and we can make this deal. I think that's the way in which I go about it. You're obviously looking to trade for a running back that doesn't have an upcoming bye week, which again, then definitely does cut the room in half because again, you are 2-4 and we need to start stringing together victories here. I'm not in a super desperate position, but I'm thinking again, we've got to do that now before your bye weeks start to kind of lock in on you. To which again, I think that's what probably is the primary number one move. In the event in which you do not play in a league in which you are playing with other teams that are very much so trade friendly, then yes, you would rip the remainder of your fab on Vidal. All right, continuing on, we had SR20 Mar who says best week 8 defenses, any suggestions? Yeah, let me look at week 8 schedule real quick and then we can go ahead and discuss it really quickly. Okay, so as of right now, in terms of the potential defenses that you can play in this upcoming week 8 because of the bipocalypse that is ahead, Atlanta versus the Miami Dolphins, I think is a very solid potential pickup and play. I think additionally on top of that, if the New England Patriots somehow become available, in the meanwhile, which they shouldn't, them against Cleveland is incredible. I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Saints. I like them. The Colts versus the Titans. That's another good one. So if I was going to rank them, I would say like the Colts versus the Titans should be number 1. Assuming they're, we're talking about widely available defenses. And then the Falcons is another option. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is another one. Under the assumption that, again, the Patriots are already rostered in your league. So again, Colts, Falcons, Bucks. Thank you, SR20 Mar. All right, Creation sends in a question. And he says the following. He says, would you trade Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Diggs for King Henry, Adams, and McMillan? Wow, I would. Yeah, I would. I would. Let me look at your team. Christian McCaffrey, Hampton, JD, as in like Jaden Daniels, right? I'm assuming. Bowers, BTJ, temporarily insurance for RB with White and Rico. I'd make that trade. I would. I think the value which you are getting in return here, and then being able to have CMC, Derek Henry, Bowers, JD, BTJ, Adams, McMillan as the combo, I make the deal. Again, I would like to reiterate, just so we're all on the same page, as to why I am so confident with a Derek Henry kind of grab. I'm going to throw up really quickly this graphic here. Just one moment. As you can see, these are the graphics for my top 36 running backs earlier today. But I wanted to go ahead and share some of the more advantageous matchups at the running back position, right? So that we're all on the same page as to what the Ravens have in store up ahead and why I'm so high on Derrick Henry once he does return. Okay, really quickly, just so we're all on the same page. Once they return, they get the Chicago Bears. That's the number 5 matchup, as you can see to the right of me right here. Number 5. Then they get the Miami Dolphins. That's the number 7 matchup. Then they get the Minnesota Vikings. That's the number 10 matchup. Then they get the Cleveland Browns. Difficult, understandably so. Not an issue. Maybe he plays well, maybe he doesn't. Who cares? Then they get the Jets. That's the number 12 matchup. Then they play against Cincinnati. That's the number 4. Then they have Pittsburgh, arguably very difficult. Then they get Cincinnati again. So you were telling me that of the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, 6 of them are top 12 running back matchups. That screams buy. That's how I came to that conclusion. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And we'll continue on with answering some questions. All right. Let's see here. Alan, what's up, my man? Says start one between Etienne, Vidal, and Evans. That's an interesting question. I don't know what the Evans status looks like. If Evans is active this week, I've learned this season alone that playing a player coming off of the injury is probably not the most wise decision. But man, I want to play him. I think if it was my team, I'd probably throw him in my lineup there. Otherwise, Vidal is number 2, Etienne's number 3. Says I'm also should I be concerned with L2T Hampton? Since it'll be a long injury, I have Vidal, good roster with him in my bench, but I'm concerned he won't be the same even when back. Yeah, I think it depends. Like, is Vidal is Hampton requiring surgery? I don't think so. I think it's just a high ankle sprain. Let me just see here really quickly, just so we're on the same page. Omarion Hampton. Let me just check this out. So, Hampton's left ankle, third quarter, pedal ankle bruise. That's what it's been currently. Let's say it's grade 3, okay? Let's say it's a grade 3 high ankle sprain. That's like a 4 to 6 week situation, right? Sometimes requires surgery, legitimately. In this case, I haven't heard anything about a surgery, so I'm not too worried about once he comes back, him not being the same, because again, if he's going to miss 6 weeks, they're doing their due diligence in terms of his recovery process. They're not forcing him back in 3 to 4. But I do agree that there is a drop off in production after a high ankle sprain, and that is a given. This being said, I'm not too worried because, again, once he comes back, maybe he's 80% of his former self, 70%. I still think that's enough to suffice in the long run. But yeah, as of right now, if Evans gets full practice every day this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. No. You know what the thing is? They play on Monday Night Football. So we're not going to know his status until probably way later. But if he does get a full practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he starts for me. Otherwise, it's Vidal. Thank you. All right, continuing on, we had a question that comes in from Michael, who says Dowdle or Devontae Smith. No, I'd rather keep Dowdle, genuinely. I think the value which Dowdle provides, even when Chuba Hubbard comes back, is a starting option weekly. Mason Davis says, evening, Andrew. Again, really quickly, Michael, if somehow, some way this offense wakes up and they fire their offensive coordinator tomorrow, I would say let's go get Devontae Smith, but I don't think that's going to happen. Mason Davis says, evening, Andrew. I'm 3-3. My team has been decimated. Neighbors, Burrow, and Benson. I'm in a 10-team PPR, and I have Hall, Purdy, Nico, JCM, Rico, Higgins, Chuba, Smitty. Man, Chuba has also decimated you. Smitty, BTJ, Benson, Kittle, also another injury you've been dealing with. Ertz and Terry, that's another injury you're dealing with. Brother, my goodness. Sheesh. And you're 3-3? I mean, look, the way that I see it right now, Kittle's coming back soon. Terry's coming back soon. You get Nico off of the bye. Purdy's going to eventually return here. BTJ finally woke up. Chuba Hubbard's going to return soon. Higgins got a real quarterback. You have Rico Dowdle as well. JCM finally has woken up. I don't see you in a position to where you have to make a move. I think your team's only now just going to be activated going forward. Obviously, I'd like to get a better quarterback than Purdy because, again, he's probably going to be injured. And if we can go look for another option, then let's do that. But outside of that, I'm not really panicking to have to make a trade. I look at this roster and I think to myself, I'm excited about the potential. If you want to trade or sell high on Rico plus Chuba, you can go about that. That's an opportunity that you could kind of discover yourself if you want to go after a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley. I think that could potentially occur. But as of right now, I'm not really panicking. I like the way that this team is constructed. Quarterback scares me, but if Purdy's healthy and active and with weapons around him, I think that'd be a great position to be in. All right, let's see here. Jordan Brookins says, in a 12-team full PPR league, I have Achane, Genty, JSN, Wilson, Ingram, Etienne, Addison, Chubb, Hawkinson, Judy, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Tucker. Trade Etienne for London or Rice. Might hurt running back. You know, honestly, even if it hurts running back, I'm taking both of those trades. I'll take either of the two. As of right now, Genty, JSN, yeah, I don't really care about the hurt that it puts upon or the strain that it puts upon your team because Wilson, JSN, and London or Rice, whichever of the two ends up being the case, I think are so valuable for rest of season purposes, to which in a full PPR, it's an undeniable accept in my mind. As to who I'm going for, I think therein lies the kind of crux of the situation. I probably just go for London because I know the commodity which I am getting. But if you want Rice, I don't have an issue with it. I'll take either of the two. Thank you. Mason Davis says, your thoughts on Hall potentially getting traded? I doubt that to be the case, but in the event in which he does, let's discuss where he could theoretically land, okay? If we're talking about like potential landing spots, obviously because one of the teams that are often talking about trading for a wide receiver are the Chargers. If he ends up with the Chargers, I mean, strap the rocket to his back, he's going to the moon, right? But let's look at some other teams. The Chiefs could be a buy because, again, the Chiefs a couple years ago, if you guys don't recall, bought another running back near the trade deadline from the Jets by the name of Le'Veon Bell. That could occur. Time will tell. Other potential teams that are looking to potentially get a running back. The Texans could be in the business. If they look at Mixon, they go, well, you know what? He's shutting down. And on top of it, we're going to cut him next year. So let's go get Breece Hall and let's sign him for the future. That could be a discussion. Other teams that are maybe looking for running back in the not so distant future. Let's look at the other side of the aisle in terms of the NFC, the National Football Conference. Let's see. Is there any teams in that division that need a running back? I don't think any of those need a running back. There could be discussion in regards to, no, I wouldn't see. No. The only team in which I could see maybe out of the blue, maybe the Bears go, you know what? We want a true two-headed monster and let's go get it. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. The Commanders might be like, you know what? We're not satisfied with what we had. We regret the trade of moving Brian Robinson, but I doubt that. Again, if anybody's going to make a move, it's probably the Chargers or the Chiefs. If they don't make a move, I don't think anybody does. So that's why I think that the window or the potential of Hall getting traded is relatively unlikely. Oh, the Texans were another one. But again, that's a to-be-determined situation based on Mixon's status. PC sends in a question, says, update again. PPR, send Judkins and Swift for Gibbs and Pearsall. Deep at wide receiver and tight end, we have Nico, Rice, Flowers, and McBride. My running backs are Judkins, Montgomery, Swift, and Charbonnet and Woody. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you would basically have to start Montgomery and Gibbs every week for the rest of the season. To which I think that kind of puts you... I see the appeal. I just don't think you need to make the move because I don't really trust Charbonnet or Woody outright. So starting Gibbs and Montgomery every week, I probably just keep what you have. As much as I love Gibby, I don't know. I don't really see the vision because Pearsall is not going to start over any of these three. Big Cat says, rank these waivers in order. Spears, Bourne, Booty. Yeah, Bourne would be number one under the assumption that, again, Pearsall and Jennings Pearsall is going to miss and Jennings is going to be injured still with the broken ribs. I think Spears is probably number two because there's a conversation in which he could be traded in the coming weeks here. Booty would be number three. Ivan sends in a question, says, Alvin Kamara or Chase Brown? I really need a win in a half PPR. Should I trade Christian McCaffrey and get two starting running backs? I mean, Christian McCaffrey counts as two starting running backs, right? Like his value point in a full PPR, half PPR is 20 to 25 points per game, right? So the value which he is currently providing is the value of two running backs. So I would just keep Christian McCaffrey and I would probably just roll with one of these two, to which as of right now, based on the graphic that I represented earlier, and I can go ahead and share once again, I currently have Alvin Kamara one spot ahead of Chase Brown this week, and that's kind of the direction that I'd go in based on, I think it's a little bit more of an advantageous matchup against that defense in Chicago rather than what Chase Brown has to deal with on Thursday against the Steelers. All right, continuing on. Let's see here. It says I have Rashi, Adunze, Debo, or hold. I'm 0-6. Brother, that's rough. Yeah, you might be in a position to where, no, you're just holding. You're holding. You're playing Christian McCaffrey. You're playing Alvin Kamara. You're starting all three of these receivers as your two wide receivers in your flex, and you're letting it ride. Let's go. Stoney the Bear says, couple questions in the chat. Stoney, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Says, week 8 buys have me losing JSN, St. Brown, Jacoby, and Laporta. My other quarterback is Josh Allen. Other QB is Allen. RBs are Henry, Spears, Dowdle, Scat, and Aaron Jones. Okay. So here's my question. What is exactly, it says view, okay. Also have Pearsall, LOL. Okay. So as of right now, considering you're going to lose 3 wide receivers and a tight end, The question becomes, can we pick up a tight end this week in preparation for next? And then additionally, how can we address the wide receiver position? To which, as of right now, when I look at your situation, it doesn't look like you're going to have very many wide receivers. If I was you, and it requires you dropping legitimate players like Aaron Jones in order to survive in week 8, I'm just going to take the loss. I'll just forfeit. I don't care. Just don't start any. I mean, just start anybody you can, but I'm not going to drop starters in order to try to accomplish winning in week 9. Or sorry, in week 8, excuse me. So the more context you provide in terms of the rest of your wide receivers on roster, if this is really what it is, and there's nobody else at wide receiver, I'll just take the loss. I don't care. Oni says, drop Kendre Miller for Spears. Yes. Thinking Kamara stays and Pollard gets traded. That's probably more likely. Again, Kamara told the owner that he would not like to move. He would like to stay with the organization until his career is over. Pollard is more likely to be traded, especially considering that team is going in the wrong direction quickly. One of the primary reasons that the public, really does believe that they fired Callahan this week is because Mike Vrabel comes into town and they fired him, and that's not a good look. So we'll see what happens. Okay, Thomas Dabney with a question. Thomas, thank you. Says Justin Fields, Drake made Justin Herbert rest of season. I probably go May number 1 because of the rushing upside, Herbert 2, and then Fields number 3. That's probably the direction that I go in as of right now. If you asked me like 2 weeks ago and there wasn't as much injuries with the Chargers with Hampton and Johnston, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with Herbert there, but losing his offensive tackles, losing his running back, losing a wide receiver that against, is going to eventually return here, but yes, still dealing with injury. I think Drake May is in the best position to succeed as of right now as well because of his defense. So May 1, Herbert 2, Fields 3. And am I dropping Mason for Rachaad White? I have Bucky, Hampton, Chase Brown, Achane, and Dobbins. No. I mean, look, as of right now, the value which Rachaad White is going to provide is something of the short term rather than Mason being a long-term starter. I'd legitimately rather drop Chase Brown than Mason, as of right now, which am I suggesting it? No, but I'd consider it. I'd definitely consider it. Carnage sends in a question, says in a 10-team full PPR, I have Daniels, Bijan Robinson, Scat, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sutton. Trade for Bucky and Garrett Wilson, giving Dowdle, Mahomes, and Dobbs. Yes, immediately. Oh my God. Take the trade. Run. Hurry. If you can get Bucky and Garrett Wilson for Dowdle, Mahomes, and Dobbs, I would immediately make that deal. Thank you very much. Give me Bucky. Give me Garrett. I don't care if they're injured. The 1-5 team is struggling. Give them what they want and just steal and just win the league, Carnage. Thank you. Wheezy says, I got offered Dowdle in London for Jamar. Thoughts? I think I keep Jamar Chase. This is the thing about Dowdle. It depends on multiple circumstance here, right? Okay. Do you have Chuba Hubbard? If the answer is no, I think I lean towards Jamar even further. To which, yes, Dowdle provides depth. It becomes a matter of what does my running back depth look like? Are you in, troubling times at running back depth? If that's the case, then sure, we take it. Otherwise, I'd like to hope that Jamar with Joe Flacco is just unstoppable rest of season. But then again, I mean, it's tough not to take this because London, again, should get these. I mean, he's not going to get 16 targets a week, but he should see 10 a week. And if Dowdle continues to maintain as a starter, we know what the backfield of the Carolina Panthers can provide because we saw it all last season with Chuba. So if you want this and you need the running back depth, I'm okay with it. Ryan Thompson says, wrong players, last super chat. I have 2 trade ideas. Trade Pearsall for Montgomery. Okay, I would take that. Continuing on, trade Mahomes, JJ, and Pearsall for Olave and Jonathan Taylor or Bijan. Again, I would take this trade as well. Again, Olave and Jonathan Taylor or BT. Oh, wow. Yeah, this one. Bijan and BTJ. Thank you very much. I'll take that. Genuinely. And then I would also trade Pearsall for Montgomery. I'll do both of them. Other quarterbacks are Purdy and Dart. Yeah, I'll take it. Please and thank you. Gerardo says, please check my question. Just wrote on chat. Okay, beautiful. Gerardo, thanks, man. Hi, Andy. I have Denver. I'll keep them. Please choose 2 this week and for next few weeks. Dynasty 8-team Jets, Panthers, Texans, Bears. Also, drop Marks for Rice, Hollywood Brown, or Williams. Okay, I'm confused. Is Rashee Rice available in your league? Brother, if you have Fav, I empty the clip for a Dynasty league. If that's, what? What is going on? Yes. Immediately, Rice, pick him up. Thank you. As for defenses, you're saying for this week and in the next few weeks is going to be a little bit more difficult to predict, but let me look at the schedules here. One moment, please. Okay, so looking at the upcoming schedules for what teams do we have? We have the Jets. Okay, I need to copy paste this. What weeks is this? Let's look at weeks 6, or let's look at weeks 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we're gonna take 7, 8, 9. I'm gonna move this here. And let's look at what we have in terms of scheduling. Jets, Panthers, Texans, Bears. One moment. I almost have it all locked in here. So I move the Texans there, and then I have to move the Jets up there. Okay. So looking at the upcoming schedules for the following teams. The Panthers have the Jets, the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers. I'm not interested in Buffalo or Green Bay. This week against the Jets, I'm very much so interested, though. So that's a plus. Okay, so that's the only thing that I'm interested in for the Panthers. They're a one-week play. Then the Bears have New Orleans, Baltimore, Cincinnati. The Bears, I have a one-week play. That's it. This week against New Orleans. Otherwise, I'm not interested in the other 2 weeks. Then we move on to the Texans. They have 3 difficult matchups, but they're an elite defense. So you could blindly start them, but I would probably, I don't mind the blind start, especially considering that I have an upcoming bye week, but I'd probably rather stream because usually I'm a streaming kind of guy. And then we look at the Jets. They have Carolina, Cincinnati, and a bye week. Also, maybe a one-week play, but not so interested because their offense is in shambles. So ultimately, if I'm looking for the potential of future multi-weeks between those 4 teams, the Texans would be the answer because they are an elite defense. And as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, they lead the league in terms of points allowed in the National Football League. As of right now, amongst all teams in the National Football League, they are allowing the where is it? Yeah, they're wait, what the heck? No. Defense. Here we go. They're allowing the fewest points per game, 12.2 thus far this season. So that would be the multi-week play. Otherwise, it's either Chicago or the Carolina Panthers this week. Thank you. And I prefer to play the Panthers if I had to make a proclamation. Thank you. All right, continuing on. We had a couple more questions here sent in. I appreciate you guys sending those in. We had Seth who says in a question, it says the following. It says full PPR league, keep 2, Lad, Debo, Ted. Wow, interesting question. If I had to keep 2 of these options for rest of season purposes, I think I'd rather keep Lad and Tedero McMillan, and here's my current reason why. I think Debo Samuel, again, I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm not trying to put anything out there, but the fact that he's been on the injury report for so many weeks consecutively scares the crap out of me. And we know that Debo Samuel has an injury history, and that scares me. And I'm not really too interested in buying in on that. So I'd rather have Lad and Ted, to be honest. Steve says, trade Genty, Pickens for Gibbs, Metcalf. Yeah, I'll take the Gibbs and Metcalf part of that deal. Again, I think once Pickens is the wide receiver 2, I think his workload will look very similar to Metcalf in terms of not the overall opportunity share, but just the production in terms of generalization. And I do prefer Gibbs over Genty enough to where, like, even if Pickens is better than Metcalf, it's going to be equalized. So yeah, I'll take this side. That's cool with me. Vainsky, what's up, my man? Says, was 3-0, now I'm 3-3. Oof. All right, let's see what happened to your team. It says I have Bijan. Okay, 12-team PPR. Bijan owner offered Chase Brown and Vidal for my Bill and Algier. I would rather have Bill and Algier, genuinely. My team is Lamar, Dart, CD. Okay, so you get CD Lamb back. Beautiful. Eventually, you'll get Lamar back, which will also bring back some of your victories, or you'll start to rack wins. Honestly, looking at your team, I'd rather just keep what you have. I'd rather have Bill. I think Vidal, again, is a fleeting potential option, and I think there's a potential which they could trade for a running back. I think having Algier, again, having the handcuff to the best backfield in the league potentially is something that I would rather have than give. If he wants to give you Vidal or Chase Brown 1-for-1 for Algier, cool. Other than that, we're not interested. At least in my mind. Thank you. David Diaz has questions in the chat if you don't mind. No problem at all. I traded Dowdle and Addison for Henry this week. Beautiful. I love it. Asked you about the trade, and I made for Tet and Chase Brown last week, sending away Josh Jacobs. Thoughts on the team now? I mean, look, if Chase Brown turns it around and does anything, legitimately anything close to 10 to 12 points a week henceforth, in an offense that is elevated, that can finally run the ball because the scripts don't get ahead of them and get out of the realm of possibility in which they can compete. Okay, if the possibility exists because their upcoming schedule looks like Pittsburgh, who is not the highest scoring team, they have the New York Jets, another one of these not the highest scoring team, the Chicago Bears that sputter a lot in the red zone, Pittsburgh again, New England. At that point, if he can put together a string of games where there's relevancy and then build rapport with Flacco to where we can actually start moving the ball, I think you're in a good position there, David. I like the trade for Henry as well. A lot. PPR, drop Monangai for Booty, Shaheed, Kirk, or Hunter Henry. I mean, I would rather just at this point have Shaheed. I think there's a possibility in which he could potentially take some trade favor from some teams in the league. Again, in the same vein in which I talked about places in which there's a possibility in which Jacoby Myers could be traded to, I think there's some speculation in regards to the potential with Rashid Shaheed could also end up in some similar neighborhoods. For example, Pittsburgh looking for a wide receiver too. I think there's a discussion in regards to Tampa Bay needing a wide receiver, but interdivisional rank, I don't think they're going to trade him to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's malpractice by the GM if they do so. So again, more like Pittsburgh because it's the AFC. I think there's a discussion in which the Houston Texans may be in search of another wide receiver here in the not too distant future. There's a possibility in which the Jets could be looking for a wide receiver considering they have none on roster. The Bills could look for a wide receiver. Outside of those kind of teams, in the NFC, I don't really think there's going to be very many buyers at the moment. So unless the Giants want to buy in, I don't think they will. That's what could happen. And even if he stays, I think he's the most valuable of the bunch as of right now. Thank you. Sin City Raider says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, Herbert, Carrot, I think you mean Kyron, most likely. Chuba, Jamar Chase, Waddle, DK, Michael Carter, Bowers, Algier, Charbonnet, Harvey Pitts. I'm 2-4. Do I make any moves? Okay, so looking at your team, Justin Herbert, Kyron Williams, Jamar Chase, Waddle, DK Metcalf, Bowers. Beautiful. RB2, very much so in question because Chuba Hubbard, we don't know what he's going to look like once he returns. So you have Chuba, Carter, and Charbonnet, and Algier and Harvey that are just, we don't know what the deal is here. Now, if Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle become a two-headed monster, I think that's best case scenario for you. But again, the value is going to be siphoned to where we would like to try to improve on RB2. How do we accomplish that? Ultimately, I think you have to wait for an injury to occur because I don't want to move Chase, Waddle, or DK because I want that to be my two starting wide receivers in my flex going forward, especially after DK is past his bye week and the potential of what Chase and Waddle will look like going forward. I don't want to move them. To which, if I'm going to make a move, potentially you could look in the direction of moving Bowers in order to try to bring back some running back depth. Otherwise, I hold what I have. I keep riding it out with with Charbonnet and Carter in the meanwhile until Chuba returns, and then see what comes of the backfield. And then if in fact it's a disaster, then maybe we can have a discussion of moving Bowers or a wide receiver to try to accommodate for RB2 depth. Chris Brown sends in a question, says, my team is hurt. We have Lamar, Evans, Wilson, Jones, Jennings, and more. Need a suggestion between needing suggestions. Dart for Stafford. I would rather have... Look, here's the thing. In a 4-point per passing touchdown league, I'd probably rather have Dart. Especially with Stafford coming up on a bye here, I'd probably just rather have Dart in this circumstance. Also, pick 2 of down... Well, look, here's the thing. If you're talking about this week alone, because you have Lamar, and we're assuming Lamar probably returns in week 8. If we're just talking about purely this week, Stafford versus Jacksonville or Dart versus Denver, it purely, in my mind, depends on whether or not we have an active Puka Nacua. If Puka's active, then yes, we'll take Stafford. In the event in which he is not, I don't love the idea of playing Dart against Denver, but I think I probably would. All right, let's see here. We had a question from, continuing on with your next question. It says, also pick 2. Downs, Io Manor, Mooney, Booty. If we're talking about starting 2 of these options this week, if Calvin Ridley is out, I will take Io Manor, and I will probably play him alongside of most likely Josh Downs. Thank you. Stoney and Bear sends in a question. Says, lineup is this. Tight ends are this. Okay. 3 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex league. We have Josh Allen and Jordan Love. Henry, Scat, Dowdle, Spears, Jones Sr. as in Aaron Jones, St. Brown, JSN, McConkey, Jacoby, Pearsall, Franklin, Coker, Kincaid, Laporta, Mason Taylor. Week 8 puts 4 guys on the bench. Do I drop Franklin, Jacoby, or Mason Taylor for downs, or either of the Bucks receivers, Booty, Burden, Ertz? Yeah, in your situation, Kincaid will be back and you will play him. You would drop Franklin, probably, in order to pick up, I would say, downs as of right now. I think that's probably the play in which we go about it. In the event in which this time next week, Kincaid is not back, then we would probably drop somebody to try to get a tight end. Thank you. Little Boy Blue says a couple questions in the chat. Okay. All right. How long have I been here for? About an hour and a half. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and answer a couple more questions. Then we're going to close it out in probably about 10 minutes. Appreciate you guys coming through, supporting the channel. Again, trying to talk all things waiver wire, trade questions, all that kind of jazz to try to address a lot of the positional needs going forward. Again, I will continue to say it as a PSA. If you have an opportunity of going and buying low on Derrick Henry, this is the opportunity to do so. I've been saying it for 2 weeks here, and hopefully you can go ahead and accomplish that. If not possible, again, there's no problem. Again, I know that even though I say go trade for this player, doesn't mean that the player or team in your league is going to be available to trading. It doesn't matter. Anyway, continuing on. Let's continue with Lil Boy Blue's question here, who says, what move should I make? Drop Coleman for Josh Downs. I don't mind that. And Brown's defense looks to stream elsewhere. I don't mind the idea of streaming them, but I don't love it because the offense... Actually, you know what? I don't mind the offense this week. I don't mind streaming the defense this week because they play against the Miami Dolphins. But outside of that, I'm not too interested. I think Miami's still a good team. Little Boy Blue 619 sends in a follow. Okay, sorry. It says, I'm 5-1. I lost by 0.3 last week. SMH. My team is Dart, Stafford, Burrow, Kyron Judkins, ETN, Hampton, Algier, Jamar McMillan, J-Mo, Keon Coleman. Yeah, I don't mind the idea of dropping Keon Coleman. Again, I think the Bills need to trade for a wide receiver. Maybe Stephon Diggs. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so yeah, I don't mind that. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the live chat here. Let's see what we have. I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on screen. I know that it obviously broke a little bit ago, so let's just go ahead. And we'll go ahead and try to rapid fire question a couple of the questions that are sent in. Hopefully, we can rapid fire at a relatively quick pace to get to a lot of the questions here. Ertz or Fannin on the waivers? I have Otton on waivers as well. As of right now, I'd probably lean towards Fannin under the assumption that Njoku misses this week. But if you're talking about like long-term value, it may be Ertz. We'll have to wait and see. Traded Rico, Rice, and Kyron for Bijan and Terry. Thoughts? I mean, you get... This right here, Terry McLaurin is going to be the make or break there. If Terry McLaurin is not healthy, and if he does not produce at a high level, I'm talking about top 20 wide receiver rest season, I think you'll regret making the trade. But if he does, then we're in a fantastic position going forward. TanFam says, got offered Danny Dimes and Vidal for JD5. I have Bucky, Jalen Warren, Michael Carter, Haskins, and Benson. I'm 3-3. Should I trade? No, I keep what you have. You don't need it. Let's see here. Especially when you have JD5 getting back weapons sooner rather than later, it's going to be fine. Timo, what's up, my man? Pearsall over Bourne rest of season. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. Maddie, would you play Vidal over Scat or Rico? Full PPR. I wouldn't. Levi says, Andrew, trade away Pickens for Derrick Henry. I mean, if you need running back, yeah, I would. Caleb, Achane, Chubb, Collins, Devontae Smith, Myers, Kittle, Waller, Charbonnet, Adun, was that Omarion Hampton, Jordan Love, Mooney, Purdy, Mixon. How do I trade Omarion? No one wants him. You can't. If nobody wants him, nobody wants him. You just keep him and you just keep it moving. Also, somebody wants Chuba for Omarion Hampton. Someone wants to do Chuba for... Okay, listen, if you can't trade him and that's the best you can get in return, then it becomes a decision on your end of whether you want to give away him to a team that could end up winning the league because they get Omarion Hampton, or whether you just want to tank it and just hold him on roster. That becomes a personal question as to you and your league mates and whether you want to go about doing something like that. Mr. Nice Guy, or sorry, yeah, let's see here. Nice Guy, long time no see, man. How you doing? Says Bills definitely need a wide receiver. I think it'll be Olave. Dude, that would be crazy. They'd have to give a legitimate pretty penny because Olave was a former first rounder. so just a couple years ago. So they'd have to probably shell something like that, which would be cool. I mean, Olave's got so much value right now. Like, if he goes to Josh Allen, sheesh. I mean, we're talking about top 15 minimum rest of season because of the talent that he has. Trade Montgomery for Bill if you would like to. I think that's a good idea. Simply, how do I fix the squad? I mean, look, here's the thing. If nobody wants to trade for Omarion Hampton, right? And I look at your current running back depth of Achane, Chubb. Chubb is not a startable option here. So Caleb's fine. Achane's fine. Collins is fine. Devontae Smith is sketchy. Myers is not startable. Kittle and Waller are pretty much your flex and tight end, to which you would pretty much play Charbonnet as RB2, to which then it becomes a discussion of how do we improve drastically? Well, the next way in which you go about this would be most likely moving Achane for two running backs. But you're probably going to get very much so lesser options. You'll get like a JCM and Swift in return. Now, if you would like to make a trade like that, you can, or you just keep what you have on roster. In the event in which someone is going to give you two players in which you cannot deny the trade and you cannot decline it because they're just too valuable, then you do it. But Achane and Collins are going to pull your most value. Kittle's also another name that probably can pull a lot of value. And if you can move any of those three, 2 for 1, you're getting two players for that singular one, then you make it. And that's how you improve your team drastically. Fields, Dart, or pick up Flacco or Brissett? Honestly, oh gosh, that's a really good question. I'll know by Thursday. I don't know for sure right now. For right now, I would like to have these two on roster for rest of season. As to who I start, to be determined. Should I trade Lamar and Javonte for DJ? Sorry. Should I trade Lamar for Javonte and DJ? I'm hurting for an RB. Yes, I would. I would take Javonte and Daniel Jones. I would. Timothy says, Andrew, I'm hurting with injuries in a 12-team full PPR, 2 flex. Who's a better player this week, Tez Johnson or Whittington if Puka is out? In the event in which Puka is out, I think Whittington is the better play because Jacksonville's got a really good run-stop defense. Goddard rest of season, top 8. I mean, I mentioned it in the offseason, and I'll continue to reiterate that point that I made. Goddard in his career, when healthy, has averaged over 9 points per game in each of the last 3 seasons. The only issue is that he has been injured. So anytime that if he was to have been able to stay healthy for 17 game seasons, he would have been a top 12 tight end every year for the last 5 years. Unfortunately, has not stayed healthy. If he can stay healthy this year based on the usage share that he is seeing, absolutely top 8, if not top 5, because he's balling out. Outside of a tush push, he's getting the touchdowns down in the red zone. Let's see here. In the flex, Tyrell McMillan or Jordan Mason in the PPR. I'd honestly rather play Jordan Mason. Half PPR, Sharp, Montgomery, Henderson. My rankings came out earlier today. It would probably be these. I mean, yeah, it'd probably be these two, genuinely. Would you rather pick up Cade Otton or Evan Ingram? I'm thinking about dropping Mason Taylor. I would honestly rather play Mason Taylor over both of those guys this week. But if you were looking for a rest of season player, Evan Ingram has more value than Cade Otton rest of season, and Cade Otton has more value in the next 2 weeks than Evan Ingram. So they're just different kind of prospects. Okay, let me see if there were any more super chats sent in. I see this one that were sent in. It says Sam Laporta for Derrick Henry. If you can get Derrick Henry for Sam Laporta, brother, run to the hills, give them a kiss on the forehead, and make that deal. It's an absolute steal in that scenario. Okay, last couple questions here because I got 2 more minutes, then I got to head out. I do appreciate y'all coming through. I'll be back tomorrow night as well after my wide receiver rankings video drops tomorrow. Vidal or Mason this week? As of right now, I have Mason ranked higher. Philadelphia can't stop the run. With Josh Allen on a bye this week, who do I pick up to play? Rodgers or Darnold? I'd rather have Darnold, genuinely. He's just balling. He's balling right now. I have Bowers on the IR. Yeah, that's interesting there, Panda. Let me see here. You have Bowers on IR, so you're just looking for a short-term play, to which I think Cade Otton could be the idea if Evan Ingram's out this week. So, not Evan Ingram, sorry. If Mike Evans is out, Cade Otton is the play. If not, we go Mason Taylor, genuinely. All right, guys. I think that's what we're going to call it. I do appreciate y'all. I got to go eat some dinner, and hopefully, let's see, what is the Dodgers score at? Maybe the game's over, but hopefully it's not. It is over, and we won. All right. Fantastic. Okay, anyway, I do appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. But that's going to cover for me today. Again, like I've mentioned before in the past, and I'll continue to reiterate, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings, of course, you could check out Betr. Signing up today using code Andrew, making that first-time deposit minimum of 10, and making a first-time play within a real cash play Picking more or less on 2-player statistics will get you those rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. So make sure you're eligible, and of course, take advantage of getting a free $10 when using code Andrew today. Outside of that, again, additionally, if you guys want to go ahead and get my rankings every Thursday, Sunday, ask me questions and on an individual basis, you can message me via the Patreon Messenger by signing up today at the maximum tier. If that's something of interest, check it out. If you're not interested in the subscription service but still want to get those rankings, better is the way to do it. I do appreciate y'all. We're going to go ahead and cue the double helix. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. Okay, so as I was going on my rant, oh, by the way, the camera's unplugged, so I'm not coming back on screen. I did see a couple questions sent in. Okay, Fabian Tover says, trade Kittle for Derrick Henry. Yes, I would also do that, depending on what you have at tight end as the backup. I don't even care what you have as the backup. I'll make that deal 10 times out of 10. Now, additionally, I did see Joseph Mayan here. Joseph's been around the channel for a while. Says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR 10-team league, any suggestions you would make who to trade for Judkins? Fields, Jackson, Genty, White, Swift, Sharbs. I mean, if you can sell Swift right now, that's a good idea. Spears, Tracy, Ladd, Keenan, Tet. If you can give away like Swift and like Swift would be the number one thing. If you have to give like a 2-for-2, maybe you send like Swift and Keenan for Judkins and another lesser wide receiver. I think that's a potential option in which you can go about it, my man. Lowe says, depends on quarterback situation, but I have another great one. It says, I kind of want to sit Dowdle for at least 1 week. I don't even know who you're talking about. Anyone have want to give me advice? Dowdle for AJ. As in AJ Brown? Yeah, I'll take AJ Brown. I wouldn't even blink, brother. I would take that. All right, guys. Shannon Lewis says Waddle for Drake May straight up. I'd rather have Waddle. You'd have to be in a pretty tight position to where you are going for Drake May. But if maybe your wide receivers are stacked, who knows? And maybe you're in desperate need of quarterback. If that's the case, and that really describes your situation, then you go about it. Mark Schaefer. Schaffner says, pick up Booty and drop Franklin. Yes, absolutely. Okay, guys. Have a good one. Later. Peace. Okay, I'm doing it again. This is 2 nights in a row. We're having a rare special ending where I'm going to answer a couple more questions here because, again, I know it's a Tuesday. It's Waiver Wire Tuesday, and I want to answer as many as I can. I do feel bad that I'm not able to answer every question, but If you do have a question and you're still here and you can hear me, go ahead and type it in. I'm going to answer about 4 or 5, and then we're going to peace out because it is Taco Tuesday and I am starving, guys. I like this. I'm like tweaking for food. I haven't eaten all day. Dunze or rice rest of the season? I'd rather have rice, genuinely. Yeah. LZ, what's up, my man? It says first year in an 8-man league, not used to this. This many studs on waivers. How do you decide who to keep and who to drop? In an 8-team league, because everyone's a stud, like I'd actually be very like I'd be frivolous. I would just like start throwing players. I don't care. Like I'm just trying to just stack as many wins as possible. Obviously, like if they hit a bye week, I'm not willing to drop them there. But if like we have an injury issue and I have got very limited bench spots at that point, like just let it rip, brother. Anybody else there? Anybody else typing away? Just wanted to ask how I can become a moderator. I don't have any mods. Yeah. Don't have any mods. I don't really think I need any. I've gone this long without a mod, so I would assume there's a possibility in which I'm not really in a position to where I need one right now. But I do appreciate the offer. I will say that is very much so nice of you to ask. What do you think about Bucky, Henry, and Saquon and Dowdle? Which should I move on from? Okay, so here's the thing. Henry, I want on roster. Bucky, I want on roster. Saquon and Dowdle can both theoretically be moved upon, but I don't want to move on Saquon right now because he is at his ultimate floor of production, to which he can only go up in value, to which the selling power of your situation becomes stronger. Rico is at his all-time peak. He is who you sell at the moment if you are going to move on from anyone. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it. What should I do with Hampton? You wait for him to come back. If you can't wait for him to come back, then you sell him to a team that's 5-1, 6-0, 4-2 that can afford to keep him on roster. You're pretty much just selling the futures of him for current potential value. It depends on your current record, Fleece. Mason says Hunter Henry or Waller rest season. Genuinely, I'd rather have Waller. Even though I do like that Patriots offense, just the way that Waller's been utilized thus far this season, I'll lean towards that. Kirk Young says Haskins or Vidal rest of the season. It's Vidal. Yeah, it was established on Sunday. It's done. Crip, what's up, my man? Says I need one running back, one flex, full PPR. Waddle, Keenan, Quentin Johnston, Hall, Swift in the chat. PPR, if you need two. One running back and one. Okay, so if QJ, let's say QJ is Judkins, okay? Judkins and Waddle would start. If QJ is Johnston, I probably played that. I'd probably go Waddle and Johnston. So whatever QJ is, that plus Waddle. Oh, no, you have to play a running back. Never mind. Yeah. Okay, so then it has to be Judkins. If it is Judkins, then you play him with Waddle. Otherwise, you play most likely probably Swift with Waddle in a PPR. Goober says, I traded Scat and Terry for CeeDee Lamb and Goddard. I'm a little thin at running back. Besides Jonathan Taylor, says, I won the trade. Who won the trade? I mean, getting CeeDee Lamb, anytime you can do that, it's a win. Objectively. So yeah, I think you're in a good position. How much fab for downs? Very little. Again, there's so many. Oh, goodness. Weston, you didn't have to do that, man. There's just so many threats within that offense. I don't know if we have to. This is what I will say, though. Downs in each of the last 3 games is at about a 25+% target share, so it's pretty strong in terms of, or I think it's target rate. I think it's per routes run. So anytime he's on the field, he's getting a lot of work. So it's relatively strong there. So I'm not spending too much. Maybe if you're in need of a wide receiver because of the upcoming bipocalypse, you could spend upwards of 8%, 7-8%. I think that could work. If you're really desperate, you can go to pushing to 10, 11. Weston Nelson says, I'm 2-4 in a full PPR. Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Nick Chubb, Chuba Hubbard, Chase Brown, Cup, Diggs, Kincaid, Goddard, Waddle, Wan'Dale Robinson, Flowers, Purdy, Darnold, Keenan. Weak in the running back room. Maybe move Keenan or Flowers. Yeah, if I was going to move one, I think it would be easier to move Keenan because Flowers just doesn't have much value as of late without Lamar. And I honestly prefer to have Flowers rest of the season. So if you can move if you can move Keenan to accomplish this, then yes, that's the move. Just traded Gibbs for Lamb. Thoughts? I think it's a W. Massive, Sam. It's Quinton Johnston. Excuse me, Quinton Johnston. Okay, so if it is Quinton Johnston, Crip, then you're gonna play Swift alongside a Waddle there. Nuclear Taco, man, it's Taco Tuesday. I gotta go. This is the final question. Says, should I trade Vidal for Kamara? Sorry, should I start, not trade him? I'm starting to see things now. Vidal will be the start this week. Thank you. All right, guys, that'll be it for me. I appreciate y'all. Much love. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.